Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Security Nuggets podcast. I'm your host, Ashley. As always, I'm happy to see you here. Now, today we're going to be delving right into the topic of situation awareness. But in this episode, we are going to be discussing how organizations can leverage on situation awareness for crisis and emergency management. This is the rule of thumb when it comes to security risk management, that organizations need to effectively prepare ahead for risks and threats. And some of those risks and threats fall under the category of crisis and disaster and emergencies. So leveraging on situation awareness just ensures that whatever security training and safety training that is being provided to employees, that situation awareness is incorporated in those trainings just so it can heighten the manner at which employees are going to be reacting and responding to some of these situations that involve crises and emergencies. Security risk management is the process of being able to project and predict potential threats and risks that could be targeted to an organization and be able to evaluate which target assets that these threats could potentially target, and being able to establish whether the existing security measures or protection measures that you have in place as an organization are capable of handling those threats. And if you're not capable, what are the vulnerabilities and what needs to be done? What mitigation action plans need to be put in place so that the organization can have a solid plan of preparing and avoiding these threats when they happen, as well as having a continuous and review monitoring mechanism that ensures that the organization is time and again being able to evaluate the existing security measures that they have in place against the threats when they happen, just to ensure that they still have the efficacy for that. And they are still adapting to the threats as they evolve and as the organization evolves and changes. So situation awareness comes into place because when we're implementing these mitigation action plans, a lot of it entails training employees in regards to how they're going to be able to detect these threats and risks and how they're going to be able to respond to these threats and risks, basically preparing them ahead for the worst case scenario, right? And by so doing, being able to protect the interest of organization and also being able to protect the employees themselves. And this is where situational awareness comes in play, because you can leverage on situation awareness just to heighten on your employee senses. They can be able to properly observe and understand scenarios and situations, and they can be able to analyze and assess and understand based on the information and knowledge that they've been provided in regards to those threats and risks. And they can be able to act appropriately by making the right decision in terms of what do I do? How do I act? Where do I go? What is the next course of action, you know? So the importance of leveraging on situation awareness when it comes to crisis and emergency management cannot be emphasized enough. It's critical. It's very important. And that is what we are talking about in this episode. And for us to proceed and be on the same page, we need to understand what are the three stages of situation awareness? What incorporates situation awareness as a whole? The first stage of situation awareness is perception, from the word perceive, which means becoming aware or conscious of something. This is a stage whereby you're coming into full view of what is happening. So in elevating situation awareness, in whatever security training that you're partaking for your employees, this is the stage whereby it is very important for us to emphasize on the importance for employees to focus and be able to understand and process the relevant information. When you're in view of this scenario, what really needs to be going on in your mind? What's the relevant information that you need to be processing? I mean, to avoid distractions, and for you to be able to avoid the panic mode, so which limits your reaction. The second stage of situational awareness is comprehension, from the word comprehend, which means mentally grasping something or being able to understand something or a situation. At this stage, you're going to be analyzing the situation by using your thought process to actually being able to understand what triggered that attention. So in the process of training situational awareness, this is where we need to help employees being able to enhance on their thought process and their understanding, just to make sure that they understand the significance of comprehending and analyzing this information before they can take any action. For instance, they need to understand this is what we've been trained, this is what we were instructed and guided to do. Should we see this happening? And we were guided that the best course of action is this or that. The third stage of situation awareness is projection, from the word project, which means extending outwards beyond something. At this stage, you've been able to analyze the information that you have, and now you are just projecting the outcome of the event based on the potential information that you have been able to analyze and put into thought process. And now you're looking and seeing that when I take this action, then the outcome is going to be this or that. And you're able to take the right action based on the information that you have been provided in your training in regards to the scenario situation at hand. How do we make sure that in correlation with the three stages of situation awareness, the stage of perception, comprehension, and projection, how then do we make sure that we are elevating situation awareness within our employees, within the workforce, to make sure that they're able to understand and interpret the significance of that observed information, and they're also able to take action and decide on way forward based on the information that they've been able to process and analyze. As an organization, the next responsibility we have is to make sure that the situation awareness framework of training that we adopt is suitable. It is going to help our employees be able to gather relevant information during crises and emergencies. It is going to be able to help them better interpret and understand the significance of whatever observed information. And it is also going to be able to help them make that right decision and act effectively and appropriately based on the information that they have gathered and the potential outcome of that situation or crisis or emergency event. So moving forward, let's dive into some of the example situation awareness frameworks that organizations can leverage on. One of the situation awareness framework examples that organizations can use is the SLAM technique. SLAM, abbreviation for stop, look, assess, and manage. Abbreviation S in SLAM stands for stop. This is supposed to help employees know that when they come into full view of a crisis, then they're supposed to pause and stop what they're doing. Abbreviation L for look, which is supposed to help employees know that at this particular point, they're supposed to be looking around their surrounding, looking around their environment for potential risks and threats. Abbreviation A is for assess. They are supposed to then assess the threat or the risk at hand. This means they're supposed to analyze as much as information as they can. They're supposed to interpret as much as information as they can. And they're supposed to understand the significance of that information based on the decision that they are going to be making next. The last abbreviation of M, which stands for managing, which means that at this point, employees are supposed to know that they are supposed to manage the situation by fixing the situation or by stopping the situation from escalating and stopping the threat or risk from actualizing. So they could be doing something, and by them proceeding with the task at hand or activity of operation at hand, they might escalate the risk or threat or the situation. They might actually escalate the crisis. So they know that we should stop. And by us stopping, then we are fixing the situation, or there's a counter action that they're supposed to do to fix the situation and avoiding the situation from turning into a crisis. And they go ahead and do that and take that action. And by so doing, they will be managing the situation. So let's put the SLAM technique into action. How can we see it playing out and employees implementing that technique? For instance, let's use an example scenario of maybe, say, a terrorism incident. For instance, there's a shooter attack within an organization, all right? And in collaboration with a shooter attack awareness and training towards your employees, you incorporated situation awareness just to heighten on their response and reaction in that kind of incident. So you used the SLAM technique as the situation awareness framework that you went for. So in an incident or a crisis of a shooter attack, which is associated with a terrorism incident, how can we see our employees utilizing on the SLAM technique, whereas being able to navigate this sort of incident? For instance, by knowing that they're supposed to stop, look, assess, and manage, during a shooter attack incident, they know that when they hear gunshots or when they see a shooter attack, the first reaction is to pause what they're doing. They're supposed to stop what they're doing. All right. And the second reaction is they're supposed to look. They're supposed to observe around their surrounding, where they are in the organization premises or offices. Where are they? You look around, what's around you. They're supposed to assess. They're supposed to analyze and assess the situation. They assess, all right? We're told that we should put our phones on silent mode to deter, so that we don't have to gather attention towards ourselves and give away our hiding location. Okay, so that falls under assess, all right? We are supposed to look at our neighboring colleagues. Are they exposed? Can we help them get into safer locations, all right? Does our office have a door? Can we close the door? Can we barricade the door? You're on thought process here. You're assessing and analyzing. And assessment, I mean, you're looking and you're thinking, we know that we have an evacuation route near our surrounding or environment where we are, and we are hearing the shooter is at point A and the evacuation route is at point B, and it's safer for us to run towards point B and get out and get away from the situation. So you're analyzing this in the assessment process, under the SLAM technique. All right. And then the M for managing. At this point, you know that, all right, it is time for us to run to the nearest evacuation point or safest point, or Are we going to stay where we are because it's more safe and we can barricade the door, we can get under the table, we can switch our phones to silent mode while we are still engaging and contacting uh, the right people for assistance and sharing information on the status on the ground so that they can be able to come and save us, you know? So that is what the SLAM technique can play out in a scenario of a shooter attack, okay? Another example, let's use a crisis that has to do with the cyber threat, all right? For instance, the threat of phishing, okay? Where a cyber attacker can be able to infiltrate on an organization's internet network through emails, you know? So your employees have been trained on cybersecurity, and they know that our organization can be exposed to cyber attack through false emails and spam emails. And by us engaging through those emails or clicking on those emails, then the organization can be vulnerable to a cyber attack. So they've been trained on what needs to be done and how to look out what looks like a spam email, all right? They've been trained on information security training. But during that information training, situation awareness was incorporated in that information security training because you needed to heighten their reaction and their awareness should they come in view. Should they come in view with such a scenario where they are seeing a spam email coming on their laptop or their computer? So using SLAM technique, your employee knows that the first course of action is for me to stop what I'm doing. I've seen that email has come in and it looks like a spam email. So I'm going to stop what I'm doing because this is catching my attention. So I'm going to pause and stop what I'm doing. And then the next course of action is I'm going to look. I'm not going to click on it, but I'm going to look at the contents of the email. I'm going to look where it's saying it's coming, the email is coming from, and probably the subject, because you can be able to see that without even clicking, right? Does it look suspicious? Does it look like a spam email based on the training that you've been given in regards to information security? And after you do your looking, you now assess by enhancing your thought process. All right. You're basically remembering what you were trained on. You're basically understanding why you were trained on and the impact of you pressing on that email that looks like a spam email, the impact that could have towards the organization, the fact that it might put your organization information and internet at risk. So you're assessing, all right? And then you now come to manage the last abbreviation of SLAM technique. You now have to manage, you have to take action. You have to take action. And that means obviously not clicking on that spam email, okay? The action could be by deleting the email or by escalating and involving your IT office, all right? So that they can be able to take the necessary action on their end by blocking those kinds of emails through their firewalls, right? So the SLAM technique can be incorporated in any sort of threat and risk training that your organization could be having, which is basically being used as a risk mitigation. So basically, situation awareness just heightens and gives more value to the security training that you're doing in regards to whatever risk and threat you're focusing on, all right? So it just gives more value to your training and it makes your training more productive because let's face it, there is no organization that wants to give a security training to its employees with the goal of that training not being productive. You want that training to be productive. You want it to be helpful And you want that training information to be used by your employees in countering risks and threats so that you can protect your organization assets. All right. So incorporating situation awareness just makes sure that you are giving your training that value addition. You're making sure that your employees not only understand what they're being trained on, but they can be able to effectively apply the information that they're being trained on, okay? The second situation awareness framework that can be used by an organization is the order loop. Order, that is OODA, loop, all right? And just like the SLAM technique, the order loop is also supposed to enhance on your employees' decision making during crisis or time of emergencies, okay? And order is abbreviation for observe, orient, decide, and act. All right. So abbreviation O, the first abbreviation of O for observing, it means that when your employees come in view with a crisis situation, then they're supposed to observe around to see what is happening, all right? And the second O for orient, it means that they are supposed to put all the information that they are gathering while they are observing into context, all right? And in the third abbreviation of D, which means decide, they are supposed to make decision based on the information gathered, the information that they've been able to gather at that particular time, and based on the context of the situation, right? The last abbreviation of A, standing for act, they are now supposed to act and take action based on the information that they've been able to acquire and based on the context of the scenario, all right? Now they are supposed to take action, all right? Let's put the order loop into action, and we're going to let's use an incident of fire, all right? Because that's an emergency. Now, every organization has one way or another trained its employee on what to do in case of a fire incident. If you haven't done that, I suggest that you prioritize that, all right? Because it's very important. Now, assuming your organization has trained its employees on how to respond to fire emergencies, and during that training, it has incorporated the order loop to heighten on the employee situation awareness in such a crisis. So we are going to put it into play, all right? So there is a fire, and it has automatically triggered a fire alarm, and your employees have had the fire alarm, and they are now reacting towards it, all right? So what do they do when they are utilizing on the order loop? The first thing they do is to observe, all right? So they are going to observe to try and see where the fire is coming from if they can. If not, they are going to see smoke, all right? And they'll be able to see where that smoke is coming from, all right? So they're going to observe the origin. They're going to observe on the origin of the fire, all right? And also try and see the source of the smoke and the direction of the smoke, okay? And then once that happens, they now get into the second stage of orientation, right? Whatever training they've been trained, they are not going to put it into the thought process. They are going to be like, all right, we've been trained that during a fire incident, we should evacuate the building, all right? Where are the evacuation points? Where are the exit points, the emergency exit points, all right? Are they within the direction of where the fire is originating from, or are they not? And if they are, which is the next evacuation exit point, you know? orientation going on there, all right? Yeah, so they figure out, oh, the fire is coming from this particular point. Or if they don't even see the fire coming from that point of smoke, during their evacuation, they can see where the people are running towards, all right? And they decide we're going to evacuate using the safest exit point, all right? So they decide, they get into the other stage of making the decision, all right? We are going to evacuate through point B because it is safe in regards to how we are observing the fire situation, okay? So they decide, and then they do what? They act. They take that action, all right? Which is getting away from the fire, all right? The other action that they can take, depending on the nature of training and the magnitude of the fire, the other action can be to use the fire tools, all right? The fire responding tools. If you have fire extinguishers, all right, they can use those, all right? If there's water, they can use those to put out the fire, all right? If they've been trained on assisting evacuation, they can do that depending on how the training was done and how it was targeted for employees, okay? So when it comes to the action, which is the last abbreviation of the order loop, it doesn't necessarily have to be running away from the situation. It can also be acting towards stopping that incident from escalating or stopping it from happening. All right. So that was just an example of how the order loop can be used as an additional way of training for situational awareness. Alternatively, organizations can blend the different types of frameworks. Well, I've just covered the two, the SLAM technique and the order loop, but there are quite a number, right? So an organization can decide which best technique is good for the organization. And also, it has to be commensurate to the nature of risk and threat that the employees are being trained on, right? So that it can be ideal, okay? Alternatively, you can use more than one techniques. You can blend to make it even better, right? So instead of just relying on one technique, you can blend and use a couple, all right? So that you can get the best outcome depending on the scenario you're looking at or you're anticipating as an organization as far as crises or emergencies are concerned, all right? So as I said before, all right, situation awareness just adds value to whatever security trainings that you have in for your employees, okay? Because it just heightens on their reaction and it heightens on the decisions they make to make sure that they make better decisions that ultimately save on lives, save on company assets, all right? Reduce on anticipated losses, all right? And so on and so forth. So the advantage of leveraging on situational awareness for crisis and emergency management cannot be emphasized enough, as I said before, okay? So I would not recommend in your trainings to just do the theoretical training and do your drills and do your simulations without considering situation awareness, okay? Because if you don't optimize on situation awareness, what will happen is when actual incidents and actual crises are happening in your organization, your employees are going to panic. They are going to be slow in making decisions and they will go ahead and make wrong decisions. And when that happens, mistakes will be made, people will get hurt, people will get injured, people might lose their lives. You might end up losing your property as an organization because wrong decisions were made because people panicked, people forgot what they were trained on, all right? Decisions were made very slowly, all right? Because the levels of awareness and were very low, were very low. So optimize on incorporating situation awareness frameworks in your security and security risk and threats training, so that your employees cannot easily forget. They can be able to apply whatever they are being trained effectively, okay? It enhances on the application, because it doesn't matter the quality of training you give your employees when it comes to responding to crisis and disaster and emergencies. It doesn't matter on the quality of training you provide if the application is going to be very poor. So balance the training, the quality of training, and incorporate situation awareness so that the application can also be productive, okay? So I hope it's been an enlightening episode, and thank you so much for watching and for staying tuned. And I look forward to a next episode where we shall expound on a different subject, still in the line of situation awareness. And if you found this helpful, like, subscribe, and share. And until our next episode, it's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.